Hello, period 8, right? Period 8. Yeah. Hey, thanks for your patience. I've been reading through your responses, your different journal entries. I had to just lay it down at one point because there was so much to absorb and such good. I really appreciated the artwork and the poetry and the journals and reflections, and then your comments about our visit and stuff. Big thank you to you guys. So this is no job for me to sit down here and respond to the rest of your questions. It's really my pleasure. I can't thank you enough for how seriously you've taken this assignment and the reading, and it's just been good medicine for my heart. So let's get going. I'm probably going to make two so that I don't have too big a tape to upload. So we'll make two little clips here for responding to your questions. And I hope I'm right, Mimi. I don't know. Halfway, see, I've had several other groups that I talked to since talking to you guys, so I'm hoping that I'm not repeating myself. I might be, but best I can figure, here's where we left off with your questions. So, Mimi, why do you think Prime Minister Kambanda stopped the massacre in Gasima Orphanage, since he was one of the top 3 people orchestrating the genocide? And, okay, Operation Turquoise is written in there, like, maybe I did talk to you about that. I think that I did. If not, just in brief, I think he wanted to use the orphans as justification to bring the French soldiers from Operation Turquoise to Kigali. And the pretense of them setting up a safe zone, the orphans would give them that kind of visual surface pretense for them to be there as a safe zone, but really trying to prop up the soon to crumble, be driven out of power and out of the country extremist. So I hope since the note Operation Turquoise is there, that means I did handle that question. Nina, in the footnotes of your book, you mentioned that some of the people you worked with during the genocide turned out not to be who you thought they were. No kidding, huh? How did finding out that people you entrusted to help you save lives were murderers and rapists impact your perception of the world around you, the people, and the event? Well, honestly, I was just, sorry about that. I was just really happy to have help from anywhere. And I know that might not sound very ethical, but it really has driven home the idea, the thinking, that neural pathway now that says, man, everybody's capable of doing something good. I was conflicted when the colonel in charge of the city, Renzaho, when he was on trial, captured and on trial in Arusha, I got an email, I remember, it's quite a few years ago now, from his attorney. And I thought, oh man, do I want to go get involved in that testimony and over there? And immediately my thoughts were going to, well, they did this and then they helped me. And then I said, whoa, wait on. If you get called over there, it's just to testify what you know. You're not being called to be the judge. It's just to go and testify. I didn't get called. I kind of think it's because the prosecution would have used my testimony. If I testified that Renzaho helped, they would say, yeah, we're not prosecuting him for helping people. We're prosecuting him for harming people. And the fact that he helped shows that he was in control, that he had power. And so I think the prosecution would have used my testimony. It would have been more damaging to Renzaho, which is probably why his attorney didn't call me in there. But in terms of my perception of the world around me, I think a lot now. I remember when the war started in Syria, I was thinking there's got to be somebody in President Assad's inner circle who doesn't believe in the philosophy of this extermination that's happening in Syria. There's got to be people on the inside. When I realized that a certain person was going to become president of a large country, I was like, man, I hope that there'll be people who will stay in there, even though it will be hugely unpopular, to work for good from within. So the idea of people working from good from within, super important. Important on a couple of levels. One, to not give up, And two, to find ways to support or root for those people who may be working inside the belly of the beast, so to speak. Patrick, something you do different if you could travel back in time. Patrick, there was a story at the end of the genocide where I didn't let a neighbor man take refuge in my home. I didn't talk about it for years because I was ashamed. He would get killed eventually. I never knew how he got killed, but I always assumed he was killed the day I didn't let him in my home. I was pretty sure he'd been involved in killing, and I didn't know what he would do if he came in my home, or if the Rwandan patriotic, the RPF soldiers found this guy in my home, or what he would do. I just said it was too much of a risk for the people in my home, and I didn't feel like he was at risk from the RPF soldiers if he would just obey. He would be at risk if he was involved with killing. And honestly, I haven't quite expressed it that clearly before, that I did believe. You see, there's so much value in examining previously unexamined, unconscious beliefs. And I often joke, well, they're probably unexamined because they're unconscious beliefs. Subconscious, maybe you might be a better word for it, subconscious. But I think that I did have that subconscious belief that the RPF soldiers would be fair, so you're going to be okay, you don't have to come in my house. But for years I felt guilty, and here's what I wish I would have done different. Instead of saying, no, you can't come in, and don't just do what the soldiers say and you'll be fine, instead of doing it that way, I wish I would have said, I'll stay here with you by the gate until they come and tell us what to do. And I would have offered my presence to be with him. That's what I wish I would have done. I would have done different. Thanks, Patrick, for that question. Sarah, did you ever question the existence of God because of all the unfair circumstances that determined if one was killed or became a killer? Yeah, Sarah. Excellent question. That's probably one of the biggest arguments people have against God, which I think I get. We're supposed to believe in an all-powerful, all-loving God, and then there's genocide, and there's all kinds of birth defects, and there's violence against children, and there's earthquakes and tsunamis, and we're like, well, if there's all-powerful and all-loving, ought to take care of all of that. But here's what I believe, is that God doesn't work as much through supernatural actions, but God works more through people's choices. And one of the reasons, probably the key reason I believe that, is because I believe that God is interested in a love relationship with every person that God has created. And for a love relationship to be rich and deep and a wonderful adventure, there can be no coercion, no manipulation, no kind of control. So God has given people free choice, completely free choice. Interesting, I think it's C.S. Lewis, he says, what kind of God, kind of asking himself this question, what kind of God would create a being that would have the potential to turn around and bite him? It's like, but when you create somebody with free will, that is the risk that you take, that they will use that free will to commit genocide. But that we can also use that free will to stand up against people who commit genocide. And I really believe that the power and the courage and the motivation and anything I can pull together to stand up against injustice, for me, I believe that comes from God and from my connection with God. So I actually wrote kind of a long email to a student recently about this, and if you haven't gotten that from your teacher yet, because I don't remember if I shared it with both teachers, and honestly, I'm sorry, I think you guys, I don't remember who your teacher is. I got that mixed up in my head. But anyway, if you'd like that, Sarah, boy, now that I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at your name, Sarah, I think we talked about this during the Skype session. Anyway, if not, and you didn't get the paper, check with your teacher. It's an email that I wrote to a student named Cole, C-O-L-E. Happy to share that with you. Olivia, when you go back to Rwanda, now I'm wondering how many of these, oh, you know what? I was doing kind of back and forth stuff. Was that your class? Front of the list, bottom of the list? I halfway think so. Maybe not. Anyway, Olivia, when you go back to Rwanda and visit the places you lived in, for example, your neighborhood, is it hard thinking back and remembering certain sad memories? Do you still have a very vivid picture when you walk down the streets of your neighborhood? Is that hard for you emotionally? my neighborhood, no, because while there was a lot of trauma in my neighborhood, I didn't witness a lot of violence in my neighborhood. I heard about it, but physically I didn't see it. I had a really interesting experience. I'm pretty sure it was last January. I got to go to Rwanda, I remember, so many times last year. I went back to our old home, knocked on the gate, got permission to come in, met the people who were living there. And walking around the outside of the house was just in the yard, looking at the view from the yard. It was just such a wonderful feeling came over me. I just remember being surprised at how good it felt to be walking around the home again. I didn't ask them to go inside. They didn't offer, which is fine. But just being there again, it was... So I really do believe it's possible to reclaim traumatic places, that they don't always have to be defined by the trauma. We can reframe them. We can redefine those places. Thanks, Olivia. I'm just smiling, thinking about my visit around the house the other day. Thanks for that question. Jan, did you ever feel lost or unable to make an impact on whom you cared about in Rwanda? Yes. Yes. I felt discouraged at times, and yes, overwhelmed at times. Did I ever feel lost? Yeah, I think so. But there's a big difference between being discouraged and giving up. And I think that the fact that the two people, Anita and Janvier, were alive in my home made a big difference. Every day, that was like a massive shot in the arm. Yes, you're here. You're making a difference. When you can believe you're making a difference, that's huge. So even though there's other places you'd like to, we just keep doing. I love this expression. I don't know who it came from, but the expression is something like, keep doing the next right thing. Keep doing the next right thing. Okay, we'll stop it here, and I'm going to break it so that we can make one last tape for the last half of the questions.